Keep in mind, what we got from Krypton was fucking Brainiac. What we got from Superman and Lois was just some guy. And that was one of the big disappointments. This will be my last video on Superman and Lois, and I'm not going to talk about this anymore, except maybe as a footnote to something more important. Now, I kind of had this feeling. Maybe the main showrunners left, and women wrote the story. That's my feeling about it. Other people, I think, in the more popular avenues seem to like it. It was just nothing felt earned. Okay, you can't have characters missing from episodes like John Henry Irons and Lana Lang. You can't have them missing for episodes and weeks and expect us to give a damn about the wedding. It's just nothing worked. I think Bitsy, Elizabeth Tulloch said, "Hey, now admit it, did you guys cry?" And I wrote, "In agony." I tweeted, "In agony." Now, I also forgot to mention the gifted Generation X, though Generation X didn't last very long, right? So it didn't last a long time. It lasted one pilot, and that was it. So the gifted, what was the other X-Men show? Mutant X. Mutant X lasted a while. Mutant X with John Shee, who played Lex Luthor, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., probably the longest-running Marvel TV show. But I encourage anybody to go back and read the original Superman stories. Now, this is Superman Archives Volume 1. This is the original stuff. It includes Action Comics #1 and some other stories. This, if you want to know what Superman stories looked like, I mean, look at this stuff, okay? These were the old stories, which are very closely in vein to the Adventures of Superman Volume 1 or Season 1, because that one lasted 6 seasons, right? See if I could find something that looks like Superman. Yeah, Superman climbs in through the window here. These are the old mobsters. This is before the Ultra Humanite and Lex Luthor existed. Luthor shows up at the end of this book. But these were the way the comics were. If you ever, I mean, the colors pop up really good in this trade. This is from 89, collecting from 1939, 1940, or 38, 39, 40. So there's a little bit. I'll show you a little bit of what Action Comics #1 looked like. This is Action Comics #1. Yeah? This is what it all looked like way back when. And Superman killed back then. Though I guess the argument is that he wouldn't kill today because he's too powerful to overpower a mobster. Brainiac, I mean, if Superman killed Brainiac, okay, that's fine because Brainiac's really all, but Brainiac's just some guy, right? As he was portrayed. And honestly, like, if I had to really think of a good ending, like, nothing came closer to it than this. Now, this was, I never finished it because I didn't have a lot of people watching, and I'm not going to put all my work into art, into writing, and have 3 people watch the video and not leave a comment. That's why I didn't finish this. This was Superman Dynasty, not Superman a Legacy. But then James Gunn talks too much. He just changes the titles of things. This was taking place in the distant future, in which Superman's a hologram. And in my version, you had Brainiac and Luthor, but Brainiac and Luthor were misdirections. They were misdirections of the fact that Superman wanted to die because he was too much of a computer and he lost his humanity. So at some point, he had to be shut off, and the hologram would turn off, and maybe he would see Lois at the end, the spirit of Lois, but the hologram turns off, and these young people each of them have 1/7 of Superman's power, they continue on Superman's work, even though it's in a distant future, like a cyberpunk rogue planet where light happens by sound, or light looks like, what is it, Light Bright, or the Disney parade. And it was such a beautiful story, and I really enjoyed, just, even though we don't ultimately care about them, we care that they care about Superman and that they're trying to continue what Superman had started. And that to me was important. So going from this to this, and then future stories in the 2000s, 2010s, we get to Superman and Lois. It was a very cookie cutter let's get a chick who doesn't care about comic books to write this stuff. That's what it feels like. Maybe it was a guy, maybe it was a gay guy, but it felt like a chick on comics who don't care about comics wrote the ending to this, and that's what angered me a lot. It's a Superman story. I mean, you could say that, like the final episode of Lois and Clark, which had Harry Anderson as this big brain person, right? And then they find out they discover a baby on the doorstep and shit. Um, and then the other one was Superboy Rite of Passage, in which he talks to some bald Krypton guy from Krypton hologram, and he has a rite of passage. It's a dumb story, but I would say that's not as bad as the Superman and Lois ending all the time. Okay, I mean, look at my keys up there. Okay, I forgot to take the keys down. These are my keys. Okay, jingling keys, jingling keys. Okay, that's what it was like to see Superman and his super sons and Steel and his daughter and Steela jingling of keys. That's what we got, was jingling of keys. We got that with the Doomsday stuff. We got that with Lex Luthor. There was nothing to this. The Amanda McCoy in comic books was someone who discovered Superman was Clark Kent, but then she got killed in a mugging or whatever, and Lex sexually harassed her and forced her into a relationship. He was worse than Harvey Weinstein. So I remember, and she was white, of course. So Amanda McCoy was very different. But they went through these avenues of Lex is a bad guy, hate Lex because he's a creepy bad guy. I'm just like, I think it would have made way more sense to make Amanda the head of LexCorp, yeah, and to make it better, to put her in charge, kill Lex or take away his stuff. Nothing. Every time I saw every second of that last episode, every punch was pulled, every cop out was executed, and every lazy avenue you would expect to see for any ending was done. Okay, seeing the older actors play Jordan and John reminded me of when Q from Star Trek made, or no, was it Riker? I think Riker made Wesley into a man, and he didn't resemble much like. He didn't look much like. What is it? Will Wheaton would look now, right? Didn't have an idea, so they just did whatever. They just did whatever the fuck they wanted to do, and it just pissed me off. Uh, it also reminded me of Henry, like Henry versus Wish Henry from Once Upon a Time. You remember that one? Lana Parrilla and other actors. Jennifer Goodwin. That had the whole like Snow White, all the Disney fantasy lore all combined into one. He even had a good actress who played Maleficent after Angelina Jolie. And that's it's. I feel like Elaine when Elaine, everybody loved The English Patient, and Elaine hated it from Seinfeld, and she's like she likes Sack Lunch, and I wonder if Sack Lunch was actually a actual working title in real life that NBC had. I don't know. But speaking of NBC, when I think of this show, Hannibal, I think that show lasted 3 seasons. Now, in foresight, it's like 3 seasons. That's not a lot. But let me tell you, this show was paced just right. It was a precursor to, well, it had it had its adaptation of Red Dragon, but ultimately Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal, the movie with what's her face, what's her name, Julie, whatever her name is, something or other. I can't remember her fucking name. Anyway, yes, he had replaced, because they do go do the brain eating scene, and so that's why Jodie Foster would not do the sequel, and they got Julianne Moore. So Julianne Moore, right? So anyway, this show was paced episode by episode. You were hanging on to every single episode like a snap. Every single week followed you. Every episode led you to the next one. led you to the next one, led you to the next one, led you to even the final season of Gotham. Every week led you to the next week. Now, Penguin, I would say, is leaps and bounds better than Superman and Lois because if you like The Sopranos, you like the mobster stuff, but there's going to be some comic book cliches that are fucking in there that, you know, it's Penguin, right? But it's a streaming service. Um, so I think, am I too old? People will say yes. Am I too old for this stuff? And I think maybe the answer is yes. Um, I don't think it. I don't think it. I don't think a TV show needs a movie budget or stupid gimmicks like punching. Even some of the CGI stuff in movies gets boring for me. So it just needs. It needs good like. I was thinking of Person of Interest. Actually, Person of Interest did last 4 seasons on or 5 on CBS, right? Person of Interest with Jim Caviezel, yeah, was very very good, and it ended well. I mean, the character dies, which is sad, and you had Sarah Shahi at the end, but it was a very good week to week episode. Like at first, the episodes kind of dragged a bit, but by season 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, you were hooked every week. You couldn't wait to see what was happening. Every week got you one episode, got you to the next. Tom Cavanaugh as Godfrey, Milton Fine, they were just thrown in there to bait people. I was done with that show. I was done with Superman and Lois, to be honest. And then we got Michael Cudlitz as Luthor. And I was like, oh, maybe they're turning this around. Then I saw that they were going to change the whole thing. The narrative was going to change for season 4. And then they went right back to the bullshit. And Michael Cudlitz's performance as Luthor was so good at the beginning that I purchased all 5 seasons of Southland, where he plays an even better character in John Cooper, more realistic, obviously because it's not a comic book format, but really good stuff. If you want to see a better performance, I mean, if you don't like the comic book stuff, if you don't like Abraham in Walking Dead, watch Southland. Great performance. It's a police drama. It kind of drags a bit, but I've given you my review of that. If you can find it, Maestro Drake, Southland, really good stuff. Okay. So I look for that Christopher Nolan, Zack Snyder, David S. Goyer kind of writing where it's like, oh, you think they're going to do one thing, another, like when Lex Luthor tempts Slade Wilson, right? Deathstroke. And he says, oh, but he has Batman's secret identity, but nobody expected that, right? Little surprises that really like, oh, I didn't expect that, but that made that work all the better. Nothing. I was like leaning on my sofa. I was like just leaning to like, when is this over? My soul is leaving my body. But that was it. That was the price to pay to see the end of an era of TV shows on comic book shows on networks. Okay, there's nothing left. I even thought about The Tick. I reviewed Human Target and The Tick, and Human Target's like Steve McQueen and Paul Newman if they had a child together somehow, 2 men having a child, and it was Mark Valley, and he was good as Human Target. The second season, don't buy that second season at all. The Tick with Patrick Warburton. If you didn't know Patrick Warburton was an actor, you didn't know who he was, and he walked around that suit, you really think he was the fucking Tick just because he just looked insane. Stuff every week has to get you to the next week. Every episode, even though I don't care about the canon of the Prime universe of Star Trek, every episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation would get us to the next episode. Looking back now, there were some predictable cliches, and I probably would have just found my favorite episodes. But there was something about it at that time that each week of Star Trek got you to the next Star Trek until it couldn't do it anymore. I think at some point I was skipping episodes of Deep Space Nine and Voyager just because it was kind of a bit of fatigue. But even Enterprise, especially like season 3 of Enterprise, because of the Xindi War, that each week got you to the next damn week. There was no waste of time and characters. Everything that's in Superman and Lois was fucking wasted. It was fucking wasted. it was wasted. So, I mean, they could try to be more like Hannibal, but I think that I think Penguin's only going to have one season anyway. They want to do James wants to do Peacemaker season 2 and not acknowledge the Justice League, whatever. Creature Commandos, I don't care. Fuck off, I don't care. I don't care anymore. Um, I'll be looking forward to Sonic 3 and whatever I'm doing, whatever's on YouTube, whatever anybody else is doing. I'll watch old game shows. I'm at that point now where I'm just a cranky old fart and I want to be amazed every time. And it doesn't take big money and it doesn't have to be big actors, movie actors to get me going. Just the right amount of something. Not too much of this or that. Just the right amount of pacing, story development, character development, story development, pacing, timing of how the things happen, and nice surprises that you didn't expect the characters to do. Little surprises and good ones. And that's all I got to say about this. Um, Moving on, I got a board game to set up here. I kind of procrastinated a little bit, but I wanted to focus on the board game because hey, um, who doesn't like Zelda board games? So we are going to wrap up the Zelda board game. There is another game that I'm expecting to get tomorrow, and if I don't get that thing tomorrow, that N64 game, I'm going to try to get my money back from eBay, because hey, the rule is if you don't send it on time, guess not, you know. And I waited for that since October, since Halloween, so I better get that game. Otherwise, I'll probably put up another chapter of Hogwarts Legacy. See you all soon.